This is the introduction to Module 7, My Problem is Masturbation. Jake says, I love to touch myself. I love to have orgasms anytime I want to, but my habit really upsets my wife. What's the truth about masturbation? Opinions about touching your own body for sexual pleasure have a long and troubling history. Even though it's a nearly universal practice which babies often discover and which can provide pleasure throughout life, it's still not as fully accepted as it should be. Self-pleasuring is as natural as breathing. It doesn't cause pregnancy, it doesn't involve affairs, it doesn't spread disease. It's enjoyable and gives you control over your own orgasms. It's not really a threat to partner sex, but it's a good supplement. Unlike what misinformed people may have told you, maybe in your childhood, it does not diminish your IQ or your mental health. It does not cause your palms to turn green or grow hair. If every man who has ever masturbated had green, hairy hands, the glove industry would be exploding in our country and in every country. Just the same, for reasons that are not completely clear, masturbation has been seen as a threat of monumental proportions. It's been called heinous, disgusting, and something that should be against the law. The most conservative branches of the major religions have taken the hardest position on this. St. Thomas Aquinas, for instance, who's considered by some to be one of the greatest Catholic theologians, he did die in 1274, but he believed self-pleasuring was worse than rape and incest. I guess because it has no potential for making babies. In more recent times, but not that long ago, children were cruelly punished for touching themselves. They were made to wear taped-on gloves or have their hands tied down at night. Clergy of many faiths have rallied against and proposed terrible punishments for this supposedly horrible practice. Now this module offers a very different point of view of what I prefer to call self-pleasuring. And I do apologize if it offends some people because of their religious beliefs. But speaking as a psychologist and professional sex therapist, I'd say that touching your own body is not only harmless, but good for you. The effects of the old, misguided ideas linger on in lots of people. Men who masturbate a few times a week may think, incorrectly, that they have an addiction. Women often don't realize that pleasuring themselves is a good and valuable way to learn how their bodies work, what kind of touch is most pleasurable for them. When you both accept pleasuring fully, self-pleasuring I mean, it takes the pressure off in lovemaking. Your partner doesn't have to make sure you have an orgasm, because you can make sure of that yourself if you want to. This module will teach you 21st century facts about self-pleasuring. Its goal is to relieve you of any guilt associated with a practice that's as normal as brushing your hair. It will teach you the value of exploring and pleasuring your own body. My favorite quote about masturbation is from Thomas Szasz. He said that masturbation is the primary sexual activity of mankind. In the 19th century, it was a disease. In our time, it's a cure. That sums it up pretty well. First, let's change our vocabulary. Self-pleasuring is a much better word for this absolutely harmless activity of giving yourself sexual pleasure. Touching yourself to the point of orgasm provides sexual relief, delight for some, and teaches you what kinds of touch help you to reach orgasm most easily. It's a good thing. As Betty Dobson said, self-pleasuring is the foundation for all of human sexuality. It's our first natural sexual activity. It's the way we learn to like our genitals, and it's how we discover sexual pleasure. With one exception, self-pleasuring is a risk-free activity. It has none of the risks of an affair, no risk of pregnancy, no risk of sexually transmitted diseases, no pressuring anyone into having sex with you, no being forced to postpone a persistent sexual need until you get home from your business trip. The only possible risk, can you guess? It's between your ears. If some part of you thinks touching your own body is a nasty, distasteful, maybe sinful activity, indulging it may lower your self-esteem and your self-confidence and cause you to feel guilty. I encourage my female clients to see self-pleasuring as a positive learning experience. I encourage them to self-pleasure as much as possible so that they can learn exactly what feels good and what brings them to orgasm. To my male clients, I offer a different kind of encouragement, letting them know that their enjoyment of masturbation is normal and nearly universal among most males and many, many females. What about masturbation addiction? Based on my many years as a sex therapist, I'd say that quite a few men think masturbation addiction exists and they think they have it. Why? Because they like touching themselves, and even if they have a regular partner, they enjoy having more orgasm than their relationship provides. This is not an addiction. This is a subject for couple therapy and negotiation. Unless you're hiding out at home pleasuring yourself many times a day instead of going to work or seeing your friends and family, masturbation addiction is not a phrase you should even think about applying to yourself. Concerns about this subject have caused a lot of needless suffering over centuries. Reading the history of masturbation reveals many cruel acts, often done to children, acts done in an effort to teach them to fear and avoid self-pleasuring. Sometimes humor can remind us that we can view issues like this a little more lightly. For instance, Woody Allen says, "At least had sex with someone I love." George Carlin said, "If God had not meant us to masturbate, he would have made us with shorter arms." Well, here's one that is not humorous, but ludicrous. Did you know that Dr. John Kellogg of Kellogg's cereal was a notorious anti-masturbation activist? I'll bet you don't know that he first marketed cornflakes as having properties that would reduce masturbation tendencies. This was one of Dr. Kellogg's main missions in life. He found all varieties of sexual expression distasteful. He refused to ever consummate his marriage. He and his wife had separate bedrooms and adopted their children. To Kellogg, sex with your wife was horrible enough, but sex with yourself was even worse. To make sure that girls and boys didn't take up this horrible habit, Kellogg advocated stapling the foreskin for boys and circumcision without anesthesia if the stapling didn't work. For girls, he recommended applying the strong acid phenol to the clitoris. The pain would stay in their minds, he contended, and maybe they would forget about masturbation altogether. I've included this very abbreviated history of masturbation here to show you that fear of sex and fear of giving yourself pleasure has been a part of our culture for a long time. As part of our reinvention of sexuality, let's put all that in the past. There's one more concern a lot of people have, though. Janet says, "I think my husband's masturbation is interfering with our marriage. Jay disappears into the bathroom for a few minutes and comes out uninterested in making love with me." Again, the masturbation is not the problem here. It's couple communication. It's time to address some relationship issues heart to heart. Maybe Jay feels pressure to perform. Maybe he's not really sure how to satisfy Janet and prefers a quick release to learning what's needed to do that. From a sacred sexuality point of view, we all need to learn to love our own bodies and our partner's bodies. They are precious and divine gifts, and every activity they are capable of, any which do not cause harm to ourselves or others, are sacred and good. Now here are the action steps about masturbation. First of all, begin a dialogue with your partner about self-pleasuring. It might be something you've never talked about. You might start by devoting 5 minutes of uninterrupted time to talk about the experiences of this kind each of you has had. Ask for your partner's support in becoming comfortable with this kind of sexuality. Learn to celebrate self-pleasuring as a precious gift. The gift of loving touch is precious, whether it comes from a partner you love or from yourself. You can help each other with this by encouraging each other to do it. And third, if self-pleasuring has become an issue in your relationship, try incorporating it into your regular lovemaking with your partner. If you're brave enough, take a few minutes at some point during a lovemaking session to watch each other touch yourselves. You can teach and learn so much from this. Most women, for instance, don't go inside their vaginas at all when they're self-pleasuring. This should be a powerful lesson that an erection is not necessary to satisfy a woman. It's treating the clitoris the way she wants it treated that makes the difference. Other women may use a dildo because she does want something inside. If that's the case, she should show him how she likes it. Men often want very vigorous, rhythmic stroking. Seeing this in action might show a woman that he prefers something different than she had thought. So to summarize, please embrace self-pleasuring as one of the endless options of a joyful sex life. Brush off an earlier century's idea that your palms will turn green or your brain will shrink. This becomes another of the valuable lessons of sacred sexuality. Loving touch of every kind between adults who mutually choose that touch is a precious gift. Enjoy yourself.